Some foods are naturally high in histamine and some foods naturally low. And if you're histamine intolerant, it can be hard to navigate which ones are safe to eat. That's why today I'm going to be breaking down the best 10 low histamine foods that won't cause a reaction and are safe for managing and even improving your histamine intolerance. In my most recent video on histamine intolerance, we covered the most common symptoms and how to recognize them. So if you have any of the signs from that video, you're going to find today's video very helpful. The foods we're going to talk about today are ideal for reducing histamine in your diet and not only avoiding symptoms, but potentially addressing the root cause and reducing the buildup of histamine in your system. Before we get into it, here's a quick refresher on what histamine intolerance is. But if you want to skip ahead to the foods you can eat, there are going to be timestamps on the progress bar. Histamine is a natural compound that your body produces as part of its immune and digestive functions. But if your body struggles to break it down due to low levels of an enzyme called DAO, for example, it can build up and cause uncomfortable symptoms. Histamine builds up in foods as well, and this is why anything that is aged or fermented is higher in histamine than anything that's fresh. And that's why eating fresh food is so important for managing histamine intolerance. But with that said, some fruits and vegetables, even though they are not high in histamine themselves, can still trigger a histamine response. And this is where a bit of confusion comes in. But the foods on this list, they are going to be low in histamine, safe to eat, and won't cause a histamine intolerance reaction. The first is fresh meat. Fresh, unprocessed meat is one of the best options for those with histamine intolerance. The key here is freshness because, like I said, histamine builds up in food over time. Avoid aged, cured, or processed meats because these are going to be much higher in histamine. Number 2 is blueberries. Blueberries are a fantastic low histamine fruit. Not only are they packed with antioxidants, but they are also unlikely to trigger a histamine response. Be cautious of other fruits, however. Not all of them are low in histamine. Number 3, eggs. Eggs are another safe option for people with histamine intolerance. They're versatile, nutrient-dense, and low in histamine, making them a staple for anyone managing this condition. Number 4, mushrooms. Fresh mushrooms, emphasis on the fresh, are generally well tolerated for those with histamine intolerance. They're a great way to add flavor and nutrients to your meal without risking a reaction. Again, avoid dried or processed mushrooms. Number 5, young cheeses. While aged cheeses like cheddar or Parmesan are high in histamine, younger cheeses like cream cheese or ricotta are much safer. These cheeses are less fermented and therefore lower in histamine, making them a good alternative. Number 6, bok choy. Bok choy is a low histamine vegetable that's both nutrient dense and versatile. It's an excellent option for stir fries, soups, or as a side dish. Number 7, fresh seafood. Again, another great option for people with histamine intolerance. But the key is to eat it as fresh as possible. As fish and shellfish age, histamine levels can spike rapidly. Now, speaking of fresh seafood, freezing fresh seafood and fresh meat can actually slow down histamine buildup significantly. And that's why I highly recommend Butcher Crowd, which delivers high quality, flash frozen meat and seafood right to your door. Their products stay fresh and low in histamine because freezing prevents the histamine from building up over time. If you're in Australia, this is a great and convenient option, whether you're histamine intolerant or not. Butcher Crowd products are top quality, they come from Australian farmers, and the convenience can't be beat. And plus, you can use my code HCK15 to save 15% off your first box. It's a great way to stock up on fresh, safe protein options if you're managing histamine intolerance. And don't worry, because you can pause, change, or cancel your subscription at any time. There really is no reason not to give them a try. Head to healthcoachkait.com/butchercrowd to check out their range. Moving on with number 8, we have unsweetened coconut milk. Many dairy alternatives like almond or oat milk can have added vegetable oils, which are problematic for other health reasons. Unsweetened coconut milk usually doesn't have any added oil because it naturally has fat in it, and this makes it a great low histamine option for people who can't have dairy. Number 9, butter. Butter is a low histamine dairy product that's generally well tolerated by most people with histamine intolerance. And finally, number 10, squash. It's one of the most versatile low histamine vegetables. Varieties like zucchini, butternut squash, and spaghetti squash are all safe for those with histamine intolerance. Now, before we wrap up, if I haven't hit this point home enough, fresh food is always going to be a better option and lower in histamine than aged food is. Histamine builds up over time. So no matter what you're eating, if it's meat, if it's seafood, if it's a fruit, if it's a vegetable, the fresher, the better in terms of histamine. Now, this doesn't mean that aged fermented foods are unhealthy. These can be extremely healthy, but they're just not a great option for someone who's working to improve their histamine intolerance. So if you're trying to improve your histamine intolerance, these 10 foods are a great place to start. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to check out my other video on signs of histamine intolerance, because at the end of that video, I go over some other things you can do to improve it, including supplements like DAO and electrolytes, which can be absolutely key. So I'll link that video up above and you can check it out afterwards. But if you have a question about whether a food is high or low in histamine, leave it in the comments down below and I'll let you know. There is some contradicting information about certain foods online, but I'll give you an answer to the best of my knowledge. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.